Okay, so now I want to shift to a set of lessons. I did 15 lessons that I pulled out of the course, and these are lessons to begin to give us an opportunity to experience ourselves as God created us, to begin to acknowledge some of the things that are necessary for us to be able to make the shift from having a mind that is split, having ego thoughts that keep us in the perpetual chase for happiness somewhere else, which are these thoughts that have us experience things that are changing, and when they move, they make us feel bad, and we go into misery, and we experience death because we operate from past thoughts that get projected onto the future, because every thought that we have is an image that creates the outer world. And then we're so busy trying to replace love, trying to replace God's truth, the idea that we're safe in the mind of God with things, power, houses, partners, something to make us feel balanced, which of course leaves us sick, tired. It leaves us in a state of fear, because once you acquire those things, you don't want to lose them. So it creates a perpetual chase, carrot that we never actually can achieve, because it keeps us in a state of separation. Me and my goods are outside of me, which is what the split mind is, and limits our power. And it's something that once you wake up, you realize none of this occurred. And it did not occur because in what is eternalness, this blip in that second, what the Course calls a tiny mad idea, a moment of insanity, when you realize that our lives are a second in eternity, it's almost as if it never occurred. When your soul, your spirit is outside of time, when we have that death experience and we pull out of the illusion of I'm only a human, and we go to, whoa, let me look at the whole picture. It's like this never happened. It's a second in eternity. So when you begin to know that you are as God created you, then we want to live from what is true. What is true is that we are eternal. We are changeless. Nothing can affect us. What we are is infinite beings using a powerful mind to create an experience. And we're creating the experience of others, of beaches, of mountains, of skies, of water. We're creating that experience because we can. Because we're infinite creators. We're childlike, like little kids playing in an infinite playground. But because we fell under the spell of the ego mind, and we went into separation, and we've been doing that for thousands of years, we really think that fear and anger and bullies and victims and killing and hurting and money and power, we think that that's true. But if we didn't give it power, the illusion would collapse. If we all collectively agreed that we have the power to heal ourselves, the medical industry would collapse. In time, there would be no need for it. If we all believed that we had access to Creator inside of us, organized religion would cease to exist, and all that would be left would be religions that would be places where people want to worship the same one God in that one way. But not because it's right or wrong. It would just be people want to gather there like they want to gather here, like they want to gather somewhere else, just to be in fellowship in a common way of saying the same thing. So let's look at these lessons from the Course in Miracles. So I started, again, these are not in the order that they were in. I just ordered them in a way to try and have it make sense as I share these with you. So the first one, 94. I am as God created me, and you will see this in different lessons. So it's also 110, and in a review, it gets repeated many times. Lesson number 30. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. So when we begin to understand that God is what we're made of, which means we are using the mind of God. We are in the mind of God. We are enveloped by the mind of God. We are made of the mind of God. All of that is interconnected. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. So when I look out, you must be also God, because there cannot be anything other than what is. And what is consciousness. Consciousness is energy, but we have labeled energy God, so sometimes it's really hard and offensive to the ego. God is energy. It's all one and the same. It is this infinite energy that we have just labeled. So then we go to lesson number 35 that says, my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. When we can begin to accept that God is holiness itself, the creator, the King of Kings, if you want to call it that, its holiness is what we're made of. We're not puny little people. We are holy beings, divine beings having a human experience. But when the mind splits and we get humanized, we get told that this is who you are as a human, in the splitting of the mind to two sides. The side that thinks I am just human, because we overdevelop the human side, we underdevelop our holiness, our divineness. So we have to be reminded that that has never left us. We have just left it. We have turned our back on our truth because we were busy developing what we thought we were supposed to be, do, and have to do life right, according to all of the humans who overdevelop their human self. And then you go to the next lesson, which is 39. My holiness is my salvation. So how are we going to save ourselves from this human story? We have to begin to activate our divine story, our holiness. Got my wire coming out again. Next time I'm going to tape it to my back. Don't worry about it, it's okay. So, in the recognition of our holiness, we begin to find salvation. And the way that happens is when you begin to accept that you are magnificent. You begin to accept that you are eternal. You begin to recognize that there's only one energy, and we are all made of that same energy, then so is everybody else. And we begin to save ourselves by no longer attacking others. Because as we see the holiness in the other, this is going to have incredible ramifications. It already is happening, but it's not the norm, and certainly not what we're taught through the mainstream media. But when somebody begins to recognize the holiness in another, they begin to treat them with reverence. Even if they are in jail, even if they are in an institution, even if they are a kid that is in timeout because they were bad, when we recognize their holiness, we treat people with reverence. We begin to treat them as a brother, as a sister. There are countries who in some cases have diminished their jail population because they treat each other as humans that are brothers and sisters at the very least. But when you add on top of that they're holy brothers and sisters, now the work is not to punish you and make you suffer for the suffering you inflicted upon another. It is a brother, sister, what is causing you so much pain that you now have inflicted that on others? Let's stop inflicting pain on you so you will stop inflicting it on others. And there are countries that the jail population is really diminishing, primarily in those
like Denmark or something?
like Denmark and countries like that. And when we begin to treat each other with reverence, the walls come down. We begin to see, instead of talk about where we're different, because the ego mind doesn't have a neutral thought. It always needs to be right or wrong. It's always going to be defending its position. And we begin to go into, let me know, what is it that you, holy being, want to see? What is it that you want to do? Why is this so important to you? You know, when I have conversations with my sister, who is a very staunch Trump supporter, and I am not. However, I recognize that Trump is a lesson God would have us see. So I see his purpose and I see how he fits into the overall plan, because he's cracking an illusion that we've had. And it's causing us to begin to get more aware of the mess that has been boiling underneath the surface of this thing that we call government, that is an idol that we have created to keep us safe and protected. And when we give our power to something external that is all I'm going to say 99% ego run. Well, the ego is always in self-protection. It's always about itself. So of course corruption and greed happens when you give all the power and you give them the printing press that makes all the money, and you give it to these people who are operating in separation. Then of course there's going to be corruption. So when you begin to see the holiness in another, and you can see it in everybody, including Donald Trump, you begin to see where are the lessons that God would have us learn, so that we can begin to see what we've projected out there. Because the outside is a projection of what's inside of us. As we heal what's inside of us, what's outside has to change. Even if it's one person at a time, one generation at a time, one lifetime at a time. It takes time because we have split eternity into time. So we've got to clean it up as we go, which is why the Course says, we are now, when you are committed to seeing things differently, we are now using time to undo what God created in time. So the thousands of years that we have been passing down untruths, it won't take us as many thousands of years to undo it, but we got a couple hundred years to change rules and laws and to change mindsets, at least a couple hundred years. But the more that we come to know the truth of who we are as God created us, the more we will treat each other that way. And that's why this lesson is so crucial, because my holiness is my salvation. Why? Lesson 46, because God is the love in which I forgive. So when I know I'm holy and I know you're holy, I activate my love, and in that love I can forgive my brothers and sisters, because we're all made of the same one energy. Do you see how that tends to be kind of a natural progression? But you can't go out there to bless the world and let your holiness be your salvation and your opportunity to forgive others if you still believe that you're a victim of something outside of you. You can't make that leap. You can't go from 3rd grade thinking you're being heard into 10th grade knowing that you are the one who's in charge of what you believe about yourself. That leap is not possible without the doing of the work of looking at the layers that stand between 3rd and 10th grade. Has to be done. So then you look at lesson 67 says, love created me like itself. Now we're going deeper into realizing I'm holy. I am one with the Creator. It created me as itself. And oh, what is it? It is love. So if love created me like itself, why am I not acting loving? Why am I accepting fears? Then the questions become more sophisticated, because the mind is no longer in elementary school or middle school. We're now moving into high school, into college. We're beginning to take more sophisticated classes and beginning to activate our philosopher's mind. You want to then begin to question what's going on inside of me. Why am I believing this? What's happening? And now you really want to come into the place of, well, if God is love and God's in me, then there's got to be love in me. Then God and I are one. And those logical things begin then to click together. It's like we're taking the pieces apart, and then we're beginning to see what's in it, and then we begin to put the pieces together. So then the next lesson, 70, my salvation comes from me. So if I am as God created me, and God is in me, and I am holy like God, now no more doubting that I am as God created me, then I am this powerful being that created all that is. Then if I'm suffering, only I can save myself. So it has to be salvation comes from me. How does it come from me? Because it's my mind that is projecting what I see out there. Remember earlier we talked about all of my thoughts are images that I'm projecting out. The world that I see are my own images. So if I'm going to save myself, then I want to see a world that is a reflection of the truth that I now know is me. That's why Gandhi said, you've got to be the change you want to see in the world. To bully a bully does not change the bully, and it doesn't change you. To become the one who says, hey, you are holy, you are magnificent, because I recognize mine, I see it in you. That begins to really change things. And that is what saves us, because now we know that the work is in me, so I got to come in and heal my split mind. What is my split mind? I have thoughts with God, and then I think in ways that blocks God. God wills for me to be happy, and I'm blocking it with my justification for my misery. I'm not good enough, I'm not happy enough, I can't do this enough. Whatever that is, blocks me from what God has created me to experience. So then if salvations come from me, Lesson 77 says, I'm entitled to miracles. So instead of suffering, I'm saving myself from my own self-loathing. I'm sparing the world from my judgments. I now am going to just be entitled to miracles because I'm going to use my mind that I cleansed from projecting ugliness to the world. I'm going to use it to project miracles. Now I get to use the power of God in me, and now we get to co-create. God, what would you have me do? I begin to ask that question. All right, what would be the next song I've got to write, the next book I'm going to write, the next formula, the next invention that's going to clean up the oceans? Something begins to get activated in us. Why? Because as one with the Creator, as having the use of the Creator's mind, we are little mini me's. So that means we're little mini creators. Now, you on your own alone cannot create all that this world needs, but you creating, me creating, she's creating, we all creating. Now, all of a sudden, all of us are going to be creating the exact little pieces of the puzzles that are necessary to return this planet to heaven on earth. You know, I'm sure you guys have read the book by Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. It outlines Eckhart Tolle, 30-some-odd-year student of A Course in Miracles. When you read The Power of Now, you're reading The Course in Miracles. When you're reading Stillness Speaks, you're reading The Course in Miracles. A new earth is a world when we have cleaned up our consciousness, when we have taken a deep dive into what is in our mind and begin to let go of what is not true. You cannot let go of it until you recognize that it is not true. Once you recognize that it is not true because you're comparing it to what truth is, you begin to little by little live from truth. You begin to choose love. And what is fear-based begins to little by little, out of lack of use on its own, just begins to dissipate. But to be able to live from the truth of who you are, you've got to know that truth. And that's where the first part of the lessons help us see what is not true. And then the lessons shift to help us see what is true.